Okay.
All right. Is it recording?
Yes. Did not start recording. Thank you.
There we go. Wonderful. Okay. Hello, everyone. It is 5:33 p.m. on Wednesday, March 9th, 2022, and this is the meeting of the Public Art Ad Hoc Committee in the City of Philomath. Christopher McMorrin will do a roll call. Zena Allen is not present. Ruth Kazi.
Here.
Saki Duel. Looks like not present. Jen Edwards.
Present.
Wonderful. Shar Fagerston.
I'm here.
Wonderful. Nancy Froelich.
Here.
Great. Janelle LaJoy.
Here.
Great. And then it looks like I'm not seeing Peggy Yoder. And then we are joined by Deanne Garcia and Andrea Marks, as well as Chelsea Starner from the City of Philomath. So first up, we will take a minute to just adopt our minutes from the February 17th meeting. Are there any amendments that folks would like to make to the minutes or any comments on those? Well, that's so easy. All right. Then Ruth?
I move that the minutes of February 17th be adopted as presented.
All right. Is there a second? All right. Janelle, was that a second? Okay. So it's moved and seconded to adopt our minutes from the February 17th meeting. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing none, our minutes are adopted and we can move on to business. First up, we have our sidewalk inlay design discussion, which of course is why we have our wonderful special guests with us this evening. So I will turn it over, I guess, to Chelsea, and she can sort of kick us off.
Sure. So I'm primarily going to just have Andrea and Deanne present. They have some information to present to you, and then we can discuss as they would like you to discuss. And then if we need to follow up with anything, we can just follow up after they are finished with their presentation. Is that good with both of you? Okay.
That's perfect.
All right.
All right, I'm going to start sharing my screen then. Okay, Deanne, I'll just tell you when I'm ready for you to move forward. This is our title slide. You can move forward. Yeah, the agenda tonight for us is talking, just going through the revised timeline based on what we were told by Chelsea as things moved out just a little bit in time.
And can I pause you 1 second, Andrea?
Absolutely.
I have not announced that to the committee yet. So just so that, no, it's fine. We were going to discuss it, but just so the committee knows, we're going to discuss the revised timeline. The streetscape project has been pushed out a little bit by ODOT. So that's what that is about. And then I will stop talking, Andrea. Just wanted to give them some context.
Yeah, sure. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we've done since the last meeting in terms of our process and some of the materials that we've been discussing in terms of the actual fabrication and some proposed categories that we're talking about for themes for each of the 5 different designs, and then next steps of what we'll be doing for the next 6 weeks or so. So Chelsea, is this okay to present then? Well, here it is, our revised timeline.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I just wanted them to know why before you started talking about it.
Yeah, this is completely, we can work with you in any way on, revisions of this. We usually just put in some dates for us to sort of target tonight, discussing some of our concepts for the themes. And then the end of the month, we plan to present 2 different visual directions and showing one of the inlays in 2 different visual directions. In mid-April, then showing tight execution of one visual direction that was chosen with, with 5 of the designs, and then getting feedback again and presenting some of the final designs by the end of April, and then a final sign-off early May. And again, those dates can be worked out in any way, shape, or form with all of you. Next. Okay, so the process we've done so far, we have visited the installation site in downtown Philomath and looked at, according to the map, where these inlays would go. And the bonus of that visit was having breakfast at the Dizzy Hen. And we communicated with Rich Lee of Iron Age Designs regarding possibilities of cast iron versus bronze, and he's really excited to work on this and responds very readily to any questions we have. We visited the Benton County Museum and we researched some to find out about their collection and see what they had in the realm of prints or books or artifacts that are representative of industry and culture of Philomath. We spoke with, Deanne spoke with Dr. David Lewis of OSU and the Grand Ronde tribe about representation of indigenous aesthetic and language in designs. And he gave us a contact with Grand Ronde's culture director, who we're still waiting to hear from. And Deanne also communicated with Jennifer Beath of Starker Forest and followed up with a site visit to the rodeo grounds to view the different timber history, which is on panels in an exhibit. Next. Yeah, so one thing we are learning ourselves is cast iron, when it's cast, it's a brilliant orange when it's first installed, and then it mellows out over time into what we see on the streets. So you can see in the image on the right, it's still a little bit orange and it's starting to, in some ways, kind of patina inside due to the weather, due to wear and tear. So we have some examples, I think it's the next slide, of these are some examples from Iron Age Designs website of kind of what cast iron, when it's installed, it could have a look to the upper left there, cast iron with a baked on oil finish, and the difference between cast iron, a little bit, and cast bronze to the right. And then what Iron Age Designs and seems to be able to do really, really well is they do different patina finish highlights, as you can see in the third slide on the top, on the far right. This inlay has a very nice, like kind of highlight around that shape. And then the lower left is a cast bronze with patina finish highlights also, so very much light dark. And then the middle and the bottom cast iron with baked on oil finish, and to the right also. So I'm not sure if these are various stages of weathering or what, but the cast iron, we were told, is less expensive than the cast bronze. And I'm sure that, the cast iron will work fine for our needs. We don't have cost numbers of the difference, but we did want to show you some examples again. Next slide.
Okay, so we have been thinking a lot about how to conceptualize each of the 5 pieces in this series. And through our research, we found that apparently the Philomath area has 5 distinct biomes that are represented. I mean, really nice that it comes out to 5. And they're very distinctive and have different species and uses recreationally, industrially, etc. And each one has kind of like a flagship area almost within the Philomath region that represents that. So we are thinking that can be a really nice organizing principle that we can use to distinguish. So they're not just like 5 decorated pieces, but 5 things that each tell a slightly different story. So those biomes that that we've identified are meadows and grasslands, and the biggest, most famous one there is going to be the meadow at the top of Mary's Peak that is just filled with wildflowers. Used to have a fire lookout. We found a really great photo of the fire lookout at the rodeo grounds. Today it's got the radio tower up there, but there's a lot of native grasses, including some things that were used by the indigenous people around here as well. And it gives us a nice opportunity too to perhaps feature Mary's Peak itself, since I know that was one of the anchors that we wanted to include. Number 2 is the mixed conifer forests that are firs, hemlock, and spruce trees, and really the backbone of the timber economy around here, which is a huge part of both the history and the current industry in the area. Oak woodlands, which sadly, apparently in Oregon, through our research, we found that there's only 3% of the formerly existing oak woodlands still in existence in Oregon, but our area here has put in a huge effort to restore a lot of that habitat. And that's, of course, where we would find the Oregon white oak. And it's pretty much found anywhere on south-facing slopes that are a little bit drier than what the Doug fir and the conifers can tolerate. So that's a cool thing that's just sort of become a focus of conservation in this area. And then, of course, we have the riparian zone, which Mary's River flows right along the south side of Philomath and across the west side as well. Habitat for fishing and birds, provides a lot of the water for our agriculture in the area. And there's also some distinctive covered bridges that are like the Harris Creek Bridge here. Or is it Harris Creek or just Harris Bridge? But across the Mary's River right outside Philomath. And then finally the wetlands, which the main one being the Finley Wildlife Refuge, where we see a huge amount of migrating birds, great areas for recreation. People use them all year round to hike and explore. And of course, the beaver is present in our wetland areas, so that's a nice species also to work in. So as we went through to focus on each of these biomes, we thought about what might be the key featured elements in each one. And we'd love to get feedback on this after our presentation as well. So starting with meadows and grasslands, we want to identify the Fender's blue butterfly. That was clearly an important thing to include. Camas, it grows in meadows, also somewhat in wetlands, so we could mix that up a bit as well. Camas, of course, is a really important food source for the Kalapuya people here. If we think about the meadow at the top of Mary's Peak, tiger lilies are a really great, easily identifiable plant that sticks up high so that everybody can see it. We thought this would be a really cool place to include also some of the indigenous names as a way of bringing back in that indigenous history here. We found 2 different names for Mary's Peak, and we're hoping that Dr. Lewis can help guide us on making sure that we're using the right spelling, et cetera, and make sure everything's identified correctly. And he was very open to that idea of kind of proofing our work as we go. And of course, the Fender's blue butterfly relies a lot on lupin, so that might be a good one to include too. And we also thought about how we could have a unifying principle across all 5 of these. Might be something along the lines of a border element. And we like the idea of changing that border element for each one. So each has a distinctive border that hints back to that biome. So for this one, I was thinking the Kalapuyan basketry. We were hoping that the culture director at the Grand Ronde Tribe can help us find some more aesthetic references. They're a little few and far between to find. So we've asked David Lewis to help us reconnect with the culture director there, since he didn't respond to our first outreach attempt. But there's definitely some room to bring in some of the aesthetic of the crafts, et cetera, that they've used in this area.
I'm just going to interrupt really quick to say for the record that Sally Dool joined the meeting at 5:47 p.m. So sorry, go ahead.
For the mixed conifer
Thank you.
forests, these are characterized by big stands of Douglas firs, of course. Mary's Peak has one of the few stands of predominant noble firs in all of Oregon. A lot of spruce and hemlock. Additionally, this could be a great place to bring in some of the logging history. We thought about using a sawtooth pattern around the border of this one. And also perhaps bringing in, we talked about using scale to kind of differentiate and add some interest and hierarchy in the design. So some of the smaller species as well, like the wood sorrel and bleeding hearts, grow in these forests around here. There's also the grouse and many different birds and other species that live there as well. For the oak woodlands, definitely want to feature the Oregon white oak in here, since these are such a focus of conservation, and also acorns being a major food source as well for the indigenous people. So we'd like to include the acorns in there. Lots of different species to choose from, because many of the species in this area kind of move across different biomes as well. So we could put in a Roosevelt elk here, woodpeckers, great horned owl, and we liked the idea of bringing the bark in as our border element here. In the riparian zone, focusing on Mary's River, there are a couple others. We've got Muddy Creek and some others in this area, but Mary's River being the major waterway. And it, of course, spills right into the Willamette River after it leaves Philomath, and was really important to the early lumber mills that relied on it for power. And it was also important for transportation and recreation over time. So we'd like to feature species like trout, the great blue heron, of course. This could be a place to showcase the beaver, rough-skinned newts, and of course, bring in the Harris Covered Bridge would be a great way to show some of the history as well. And in here, we like the idea of using a water wheel as our border element. After we found some images of some historic lumber mills in the area that used water wheels to power the equipment, the machinery. So a water wheel might be a nice thing to showcase here. And then finally, the wetlands, focusing on Finley and the species that are found there. Year-round marshland habitats. Canada geese, of course, are ubiquitous. The Oregon, our like official state bird is the meadowlark, found in that area as well. Of course, we all see red-tailed hawks everywhere we go. And also the northwestern pond turtle is a good species in this area. This one we talked about using perhaps marshland grasses as a border element. There was less of the connection that we could find here to the human use of the area, which is something that we've tried to find, to identify for borders of some of the others. But I'm not sure historically how we've used the marshland specifically. So this one's focused a little bit more specifically on the flora and fauna. Yeah, so we're working with the representatives of the tribe, hopefully with the contact that David Lewis has referred us to can help us, especially with the aesthetic, because we want to get that right. We do not want to showcase something generic that isn't really representative of the Kalapuya people. David Lewis provided us with a few names already of some species and locations here to start off with. And yeah, so the Silet's basket is one that Chelsea had provided for us. And then we found one Kalapuya basket. And so far that's all we found for weaving patterns, which make great border elements. So we want to expand our research on that still. And then we did find some good stuff at the exhibit there by the rodeo grounds. You can see here the water wheel that we were thinking of bringing in as one of our border elements. Some great old bridges and photos of there's a lot of pictures of people with gigantic trees. But we like the idea of bringing in some of these elements to hint at the history and culture as well.
And
I
Ruth,
see a hand up.
yeah, Ruth, did you want to go?
I just wanted to mention with respect to the basket weaving patterns, you might get in touch with Robert Kenta.
Okay.
He's a member of the Silet tribe, and he's an artisan himself. And I'm sure he could provide you with a number of patterns.
You wouldn't happen to have a contact for him, would you?
I know it's available on the internet if you just Google the Silet tribe.
Okay,
He's one of the tribal officers.
awesome. Thank you so much. That's great.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Ruth. If you have, do you have more for the presentation?
Well, we have a few more slides to talk
Okay.
through, but it might be good to pause and talk a bit
Yeah.
about those themes before we move on.
Sure. I guess, do folks have thoughts or comments or questions while we're here? I have one or two, but I can hold off for a little bit if folks, no one's jumping at the bit here. I guess I just a few little sort of maybe logistical questions. You were talking about including some of like the names for things, and I guess I just was wondering sort of how you're envisioning incorporating text into the designs, and would it be only sort of the Native American names that there would be text in there, or will there be text in all of it? I guess that was sort of one question that stood out.
Some of that will be determined as we work through the aesthetic directions. But we did find that in a lot of the examples that, and I can move back to, sorry to flash this at you all.
No worries.
But it looks like they get really nice, crisp clarity in typography in a lot of these. So we felt like it could be either integrated specifically in with the illustrations themselves or as a rounding element. Either of those could work. We found a lot of amazing images of Japanese manhole covers, which is what they have gorgeous designs of manhole covers all over Japan that are extremely intricate. And we like how some of those incorporated Japanese characters into the illustrations. Of course, their characters are a bit less linear than ours and might work a little bit better as integration. I don't know, Andrea, do you have anything to add?
Well, as Deanne said, as we work through the design that we'll show next meeting, the two different designs, we'll have a better idea of how to integrate the type. We're not thinking of having every symbol have a label on it, so to speak,
Right.
Or at this point. We have another idea we'd like to run by you tonight for identifying. So we'd have to determine which words made sense within each inlay design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. And then I guess, I don't know if this is something we talked about yet or not. Are we thinking of doing like a lot of these, have like University of like blah, 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 or City of blah, blah, blah around the outside? Is that something we're thinking of doing, or are we not? I know I should know this because I feel like this is something the committee talked about. So I don't know if Chelsea, you.
I feel like you discussed it, and the reason why it might be unclear because you came back to it several times.
Yeah, right.
But I think that you landed on, you were kind of okay either way. Some people maybe felt like, we know we're in Philomath. Do we really need to put that on the ground telling you you're in Philomath? So it went two ways. It went, if it made sense, I think was kind of the consensus. If it makes sense and it is part of the design and the overall look and the way that we want to go, fine. But I don't think it was we have to see it on the inlays.
Okay, great. I guess, yeah, just while we were on the topic of text, I wanted to sort of see where we were at with that. But yeah.
And we could try it both ways too, and
okay, yeah,
on what we feel.
If that works for you. Okay. And then, yeah, the only other comment I had was just sort of echoing Ruth, I think it would be great to also work with the Confederated Tribes of the Silex, just since they're little, I think, our most local tribe. But yeah, so that's all I have. Other committee members, do we have thoughts on things? Oh, I see Janelle.
Always, right? Just a couple of very small random things. Scientifically, I'm wondering, are we going to be talking just common names or common and scientific names? And then I noticed that like Douglas fir was not capitalized and Doug fir. I just want to really be sure that though, especially the tree names as a tree person, that those are like spot on. And then I was also thinking the oak woodlands, I think, and please committee correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we call it oak savanna.
You might be right.
That's like
Sure.
the big restoration is to bring back the oak savannas because all of the conifers have taken over the lands that the native folks used to clear with fire and have for hunting grounds. So I think oak savanna is before you put any work into oak woodlands. And then I was thinking with the wetlands too, and I don't know if this is outside of kind of what you guys were thinking as far as the human uses of the wetlands, and also we would need to check with our local tribal folks, but a lot of people used feathers historically from birds for their own plumage, right? So that could be, it's just a brainstorm is all.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah,
Awesome, thanks.
perfect.
Yeah, I'd seen, I've always heard of our oak areas here referred to as savanna, but then when I was researching it must have been ODF, had a whole thing about conservation around the Mary's Peak area, and they referred to it as an oak woodland, but maybe ours is more specifically savanna here. I don't know. But maybe if more people just know it as savanna, then we can call it savanna.
Yeah, I think I've heard Savannah, but I'm definitely not an expert. But thank you, Janelle. Do we have any other committee comments or questions? And if I'm missing you, just yell at me. Nancy?
There. I just wanted to say I really like how you broke down the themes so that it still can include a lot of different things, because I think that was one of the challenges of the committee was how do we cover so much and have it be rooted somehow, some way. And I think you guys did a great job of coming up with ways to include everything that makes sense. So good job.
Cool, thank you.
Yes, I would echo that. Ruth?
Yes, I just wanted to say the same thing, really. I think they're wonderful ideas. Very exciting. Going back to the materials that this will be made of, I just wanted to say that I think the cast bronze with patina is really beautiful. That's probably my favorite, but the cast iron with a baked on oil finish is nice as well.
Yeah, I guess a question about that. Does the patina and everything, like, do we know that lasts for a while? Like that won't, like how long will that montage thing look like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, Deanne, were you talking with, I forget it, was it Rich or was it the Japanese who have the program of redoing these every few months?
Oh, Rich told us that the Japanese do that. Yeah, that they go through and refinish to make them look perfect.
Look great. Yeah.
These are not Japanese examples, though. These are from Iron Age.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
I'll
this one.
reach out. I'll definitely reach out to Rich next step and ask him specifically now for these variations, how long would, say, that montage, how long would that look that way, where you've got the highlights? Because those highlights, Deanne and I also think they're really stunning to see kind of some different layers that way. But again, I'm not sure. We'll find out some more details on this.
Yeah, no, thank you. Because I agree, Ruth. I think it's beautiful, but I just want to make sure it'll be beautiful for 50 years before we put it in the street.
Yeah. One concern that we had when we first got the immature of the dairy block one from Rich was like, we first questions, is this old or new?
Yeah.
Because it came in all orange, and he said, oh, it will be installed. It'll be super bright orange. And he said it does have a tendency to stain, and you can see some of the stain happening here in this one. And they said over time it washes off and becomes more stable. So it won't continue to shed. I don't know why I can't think of the word, but it won't continue to bleed. But it does present a little bit of a struggle right off the bat if it immediately stains the sidewalk.
Yeah, and you can see in this upper left the bleeding on the edges. So, and we're not at this point. We're not thinking of doing that type of design where there's an inlay of stone in between on the upper left. But yeah, there could be some staining with the cast iron around the edges, just so everybody's aware of that. And I can ask Rich about how bad it looks and for how long.
Yeah, no, that's great to know. Thank you.
It sounded like the process is the same for them regardless.
Okay.
They'll make the same a mold, and whatever we decide to put into it, they can do. Whether it's bronze or iron, they're fine with that. But the mold is the same regardless.
Okay. And then I guess for you two, do you need to know from us like now if we want sort of the patina thing so you can figure out, the different layers, or is that something we can talk about at the next meeting?
I think, well, Deanne, you correct me. I think some of it would have to do with budget,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. And we don't know what that is. So before we design it that way, we'd want to probably talk with Chelsea.
Chelsea, I see your hand up.
Yeah, let's have a conversation about that. I do know how much more the bronze is than the cast iron. The sidewalk staining is a little bit of a concern. While I think the cast iron is really beautiful, it might be frowned upon to have a brand new downtown with these inlays staining the sidewalk. So we should talk to Rich about that and see what that looks like, long term. And yeah, let's just have we'll talk on the side about the possibilities for budget. And we did get a cost from Rich I got the cost for the bronze, just so we could see, here's the high end, and just kind of going from that point. If we decided to go on the lower end, that's fine. But I've just been planning on it with the high end because that might be where we end up. I'm interested to see though, and I can ask Rich this in collaboration with you, if it doing some of the extra finishes or some of this additional work, if that adds extra cost to what he quoted us. So we can look into that too.
Okay. So, sorry, go ahead.
I think from a design standpoint, if we could know within the next week or so, that would be helpful, because it would, if we were going to go forward with one, like with the patina finish,
yeah,
that would essentially be working with a different color palette.
Right, of course.
Anyway, because we'd have the depth plus the color. So that would change some of our design, but we don't need to know tonight. Like we can know in a week or more.
Well, I guess just since we have the committee here, it kind of seems like, and someone please speak up if I'm wrong, it kind of seems like we might like the patina finish if we can afford it. Is that where we're at, or does anyone hate the patina look?
Yeah, I think that would be a good discussion if we could have kind of a consensus, and then I can review what these logistics are. So basically, let's say that you decide as a committee, we like cast iron. However, if we find out that it's going to really stain the concrete as a committee, we don't want to recommend it for that reason. If we could come up with a couple, you know, kind of consensus votes on that, that would be good too.
Yeah, so I guess does anyone have any super strong feelings about the materials? Because if not, then I think, oh, I see Ruth.
I just have a question. Is it the cast iron? Is it the baked on oil that tends to stain, or does the cast iron stain?
I'm guessing that the cast iron itself stains, but another question for Rich would be, do they have a sealing process that would keep it from doing that? What's the maintenance on that? How often would we have to do it to keep it from doing that? But you know, my cast iron skillet, if I put it in the sink and leave it, it's definitely going to cast off, you know, the rust colored.
Okay.
So I think it's kind of similar to that, but we can ask those questions. You know, I have no problem sending Rich an email, and I can just CC Deanne and Andrea so you can hear that conversation and chime in if you need to.
And then Nancy?
Just my immediate reaction to all the examples on the screen. I am nervous about the cast iron and the bleeding and the public's immediate response to it just looking more horrible before it looks better. I don't know what that time frame is. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the weather here is what it is, and so maybe it patinas real quick, and it's only like a week. I don't know. So that's like a moving part that maybe they can answer. But personally, I'm really responding to the one on the top right, the cast bronze with the patina, because I think that gives you like 3 tones to work with your illustration. It has like, I don't know, and I'm thinking about it being embedded in concrete, which is dark colored. I don't know, it's kind of subtle.
Yeah.
Kind of blends in more, and it's not super shiny, like, hey guys, here I am. It's just like sort of part of the sidewalk in a way that I think is really interesting. So that's the one I'm immediately responding to. I guess I would need more information about the cast iron, but
Yeah.
it's just my thoughts.
No, I'm also somewhat partial to that one. I guess just to keep us moving here, does anyone really hate the sort of cast bronze with patina? Because if not, then I think maybe our direction to Chelsea is maybe investigate the costs more, and then if that seems feasible for us to go that direction, that's what we'd like. And then if not, maybe get back to us with some of the information about maybe not doing patina, or just, you know, what is some of the info on the bleeding for the cast iron. Does that sound okay to folks?
If I may, I just found the email that we got from Rich about that. He says, cast iron goes through the patina process once it is live. It will be brilliant orange at the start with a possibility of staining surrounding concrete. After the iron oxides wash away, the carbon in the metal creates a shield of protection. So sounds like it will get better with time. But yeah.
Okay.
I think my concern would be just brand new concrete all over that this will be installed in, and that would be my concern. You know, if I were installing it in a patio where I am sealing that concrete and finishing it, and I'm able to maintain that, it might not be as much of a concern, but being the public sidewalk, and it sounds like others kind of have that concern that we wouldn't want to put these out here and then everyone walks by and says, wait a minute, you just stained the brand new sidewalk with that.
It feels like an episode of Parks and Rec where like everybody's super excited about these new things, and then like halfway through the episode they just like turn the street orange or something.
Right, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds, just unless anyone has any opposition to it, it does sound like you're interested in the cast bronze, potentially with this patina finish highlight, and that I can look into that and see what kind of a cost if that would be. And
Yeah, I just see Janelle's hand, so I want to make sure we get to her.
Just super quick, I just want to cast my vote that I don't care for the top center bronze
Mhm.
as much as the other two. that's, I just want to say my words.
Yes, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess Chelsea, if the cast bronze with patina doesn't work out, then I guess maybe if you can like send us an email or something.
Yeah, I will. I'll communicate. I think, like I said, I have a cost.
Yeah,
So I'll just review it with the city manager to talk about the budget for the project. And then I'll just check in with Iron Age to make sure that this particular finish isn't accruing any extra costs. If it is, I'll find out what that is and see if we can make that work.
great. Okay. Janelle, is your hand still up? Oh, beautiful. Okay. Andrea?
Yeah, I wanted to point out also that the one on the top right that everybody enjoys, and I like it a lot too. It's the design is debossed into it, whereas the one to the left it's raised the design. So as the other ones, so there's different things. I don't know if this was something we could just have a brief informal chat about, like deboss versus emboss, going in versus coming out. Deanna and I will look at that also with the designs for sure. But it's something to note at least in that one.
Yeah, no, that's a very good detail. Chelsea?
Yeah, the other factor, and I don't know if you got into this with Rich, but is the ADA requirement for the project. Anyway, we would want to do that, but because it's an ODOT project, we do have to adhere to pretty stringent guidelines. So he may have some information about that as well, like what, some of this, the one on the bottom right, kind of looks like I could walk on that and trip over it, like get my foot stuck on it the way that it is. So, and that may not be somewhere where people walk. It's hard to say, but that's another consideration you may want to talk to Rich about, when you're talking about how to design this.
And I guess as far as the embossed versus debossed thing, I feel like I do not know enough about this to have an opinion on that. I sort of trust you two to do what's better, unless if that's not a helpful answer, or unless if anyone else on the committee has strong feelings. Shar?
Not a strong feeling, just a thought regarding like maintenance. If it's just because of the weather and the wear, would it get filled? Like, I don't know how deep it is, if it's a 1/4 inch, is it going to get filled in so we lose a lot of the design? If it's debossed as opposed to embossed, that's my thought about that.
No, that's thank you. Any other thoughts on that? Okay. I guess then for our artists, do you have any other questions for us while we're here, or do you want to keep moving?
I think that's it. We can move on.
Okay.
That was really helpful for us.
Yeah.
Great.
Where did we leave off? We are right here. Okay, Andrea.
Yeah, so we had this idea because we will have incorporate a lot of symbols into each of the 5 different inlay designs, that we like people to learn about why these symbols are there and their importance. So we could do something like adding a QR code to the kiosk and having people use their smartphone to scan the code, which would pull up this microsite with information on each of those, or the ecology and history is showcased in the inlays, so that there's definitely more going on. It could even be kind of a fun thing for them to do first, and then go to the different inlays and kind of with their phone and kind of look and say, oh, that's in this area and that's this. And so that's one way to get around just all of these being in the sidewalk without reference, because you can only do so much, obviously, in a inlay. I guess we wanted maybe some, just to present this idea, and if you want to chat about it amongst yourselves now or after.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love it. I think we may have also talked about that at a previous meeting.
What I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think we're totally on board for that. I think we would rather keep the actual inlays themselves, you know, relatively uncluttered, and then center everything in the kiosk. So thumbs up for that. Again, unless if any committee members just really love text in the designs, but yes.
Yeah, and then again, next steps are going to be developing these two distinct visual directions for the series, and we will show those two different directions in one design, and from there we'll go on. We'll get some feedback, and we'll also wait to just hear a little bit more about the finishes from Chelsea before we kind of really dial in these ideas, because that will have a bearing a little bit on how we design it, and then we're confirming Indigenous naming and representation with Dr. Lewis, and plan to present directions to the next group meeting, along with our committee meeting on or near March 30th, whenever that. I'm not sure if that's the exact date you're meeting, or if we have one with, or if Chelsea, you present it to them after we show it to you. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that's open for what you feel like you've allocated time for. We've been kind of just making our meetings at each meeting, depending on
Okay.
you know, what we need to get done and how soon. So I think that's up for debate. And maybe Christopher, if you want to move that portion up while they're still here of discussing.
Yeah.
Being a good meeting time for the next meeting, that's fine when they're done with their presentation.
Yeah, sure. Are you, if you
I
want to
think
finish
we
up,
have-
we can chat about that.
What do we have? One more slide? Oh, yes, thank you.
We're done.
Well, it's a beautiful photo. But thank you both very much. And I want to just clarify that I feel like we spent all of our time talking about the materials and not the design. And I think I speak for the committee when I say that's just because the design information you presented is pretty much spot on with what we were envisioning. So that's our lack of feedback is not a lack of interest. It's just I think we are very comfortable with the direction this is going. So thank you very much. And I guess we can go ahead and move on to our second business item, and I'll just skip to sort of the setting of our next meeting date. So you said that sometime around March 30th would work best for you two, is that right?
Do you want to wait that long? Would you rather look at, I don't know if people have plans for spring break week, but that week of like the 23rd is a Wednesday. It's really about what do you feel you need time for, I think, and then the committee, we can work around it.
We need it. We need definitely until March 30th.
Okay. Do you want to push it out a little further than that into like the first week of April? Would that be more cohesive for you? Like I said, and I didn't fully explain to everyone, but ODOT has pushed this project out a couple months. So everything is getting pushed a little bit, which gives us a little bit more time to make the decisions. We don't want to really draw it out too long because they have to be manufactured still, but it does give us a little bit of, we can breathe a little bit more on our timeline. So I think it's up to you designers on, you know, if that looks like.
I will just say I'm going to be out of the state from April 2nd for like a week or two. So we should either, if I should be here, we should either do it like March 30th or like after that. But yeah.
Okay.
For us, a lot of the work really is kind of front loaded on our side because the development of the visual directions takes longer than blowing them out into the other compositions. So we wanted to make sure we were kind of working back from May 9th because I believe that was actually a scheduled city council meeting. So we wanted to make sure we were approved by that date. So yeah, I think Andrea and I had even talked about pushing this March 30th a little bit farther out, but we were worried then about whether we'd end up crunching our our time frame at the end. So it's a little tight overall, but we can make it work.
So the city council meetings are generally, they're the second Monday of the month. So what we're trying to do is hit so the committee can feel like, yes, we're just at the end, we're going to review it. There's not going to be anything else for you as artists to do, or if it were, it would be very minimal to get materials in for the council meeting. I have to get materials in Tuesdays before the council meeting, so the week before. And then the inlays themselves are reported to be 12 weeks. Rich says 12 weeks, but of course that could change if they get busy and need more time. But that's kind of 3 months for that. The project is maybe September for when we probably need to have the inlays there, is my guesstimate based off the date. So that's kind of what we're working with on that end, is just making sure we kind of hit those key timelines.
Well,
So, oh yeah, sorry,
I
go
think you should be there, Christopher, for sure.
Okay.
And I think Deanne and I, we can just confirm after this meeting, but I do think we could hit the March 30th. I'm thinking, because that'll give us 5 weeks after that to develop.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not March 30th, then I think I could do like April 13th would be the next date, but that might not be ideal.
I think that would be too far out for us.
Okay. So sorry to make things difficult.
That's okay. And it does seem like with that 3-month production timeline that we need to hit May 9th for.
Yeah, I think that would be the best if we can do that. Yep.
Let me just check this. Okay.
So we're thinking the 30th of March.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, I guess, how does that work?
How does that work for other
Yeah.
folks? It's a Wednesday, 5:30.
Janelle, I see head shaking. Is that bad or good? Oh, bad.
Bad.
Yeah, I can't make it on the 30th.
Okay. I mean, because we could do like the 31st or
Is it that whole week, Janelle, or?
Well, I'm back in town Friday, Saturday, so
okay.
but yeah, we're gone Monday through Thursday.
Okay.
Okay, well, we're probably gonna have to choose who can and can't come, because now it's already a 3-week span.
Yeah. We should try to make sure we'll have a quorum, especially if we're going to be approving things.
Right.
But,
And
yeah.
is there any possibility, not that you want to, but that one of you are somewhere that you could pop in for a little bit?
Right.
Maybe.
It depends on, because I could perhaps do the week after, depending on the day and time. I will be taking a train across the southeast.
Nice.
So if I'm actually physically on the train, I probably can't.
Right.
But, yes.
Well, I think that could add some excitement to the meeting. Okay. So what do you think?
I guess for the
Fly on trains.
Well, it's a little spotty. I know from experience. But I guess, yeah, for the rest of the committee, do we have any strong feelings about when to do this? Not hearing much. Okay.
I'm open, so.
Okay. Then I don't know. I feel like Chelsea.
Sticking with the 30th, I think maybe
Okay.
it sounds like that works for Deanne and Andrea, even though it might be a little bit of a cram. Can we do that with the 30th? Okay. Okay, we'll put that down. And then after that, what kind of a timeline did you have after that, Andrea and Deanne?
I can share that slide again real quick.
Just maybe we can get a couple dates on, and that might be helpful.
Yeah, we were looking at the 13th, so 2 weeks after that to show the rest of the series
Okay.
or feedback.
The 13th is showing the tight execution of one design, right? And then
Yes.
the
Fine.
end of
Okay.
April is all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just set those out. And then did we also want to set the 27th? That's 2 weeks after that. Does that give you, do you need another meeting after that? Or are you into May?
We could get a few days past the 27th if that's better for people, because that would be essentially getting your final sign off
Right.
before we go to the
Okay.
council.
So you won't, yeah, so there's no work that you'll be doing between the 27th and the 9th.
Hopefully not, yeah.
Most likely not, hopefully. But if there is, it gives us a buffer there for
Right,
sure.
okay.
You know.
Okay.
So if it sounds like that needs to be, materials would need to be delivered by the Tuesday prior to the meeting.
The
Right.
council
So
meeting.
that would be, let's see, May 9th.
3rd.
So that'd be the 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere around the 27th would be good, because then if there is any last minute changes, then we'd have a few days to
Okay.
do that to get it in.
Yeah,
Right. Is anyone seriously opposed? I know there are some little oppositions to March 30th, April 13th, and April 27th for your next 3 meetings to get through this part of the process. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and schedule those out. Okay.
cool, great. Then I guess, Chelsea, do you have any other notes on next steps, or should we?
I don't. I think we're good. We did a lot of work tonight.
Okay, fantastic. Then any other final thoughts, questions, announcements for the good of the order? All right. Well, again, thank you both very much, Andrea and Deanne. I hope we didn't stress you out too much by setting the March 30th date. But please let us know if anything comes up. Again, to our committee members, thank you all for being here. I'm excited about how this is going these days. So we will see you all on March 30th at 5:30 p.m. And with that, it is 6:29 p.m. So I will adjourn the meeting until our next meeting.